we're running a little behind, so we'll go right to the next one. Laura McCoy from the Manx National Heritage is here, and she will present the first striped dolphin on the Isle of Man, working collaboratively to preserve it for the, to preserve it for the Manx Museum and public. Laura? Oops. Are you here, Laura?
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Oh, great. Thanks, sorry.
Sure, no problem.
Hello, my name is Laura McCoy. I am the Natural History Curator for Manx National Heritage on the Isle of Man. To give you a bit of context, the Isle of Man is in the Irish Sea, in between Ireland and the UK. It's a Crown dependency, so it's autonomous from the UK, and it's 30 miles long by 10 miles wide, and has a population of 84,000. And that's just to help you get, to kind of key you into the fact that we are very small, and our resources are kind of split, and so we often have to work cross-departmentally to solve problems, because not one institution or place will have all of the kits or all of the means to be able to deal with all problems. So in late December 2017, a striped dolphin, Stenella, I always get this wrong, Kawiru Leo Alba, stranded on the southern coast of the island, and it was still alive. So the local wildlife trust officer and a member of the Department for Environment, Farming and Agriculture, they turned up. They tried to refloat it, but unfortunately it died. But because it was around Christmas, they decided that they would freeze it in the department's freezers and then wait until everyone was back for the new year. So after the holidays, the Wildlife Trust officer, a volunteer vet and myself carried out the autopsy, and I asked if it was possible to be able to take the carcass for composting, because the Manx Museum has extensive, it's got a very large sei whale skeleton, which is the only member of that species to wash up on the shores, and that was in 1925, and it's got a couple of other cetacean skeletons on display. So I thought it'd be really great to add this one as a contemporary specimen. So there you can see the picture of it on the in the lab, ready for autopsy. There were some more gruesome pictures, but I decided to not include those for the more sensitive. And then after the autopsy, an ex-employee of the museum said that he was willing to let us bury it on his land for composting, which was very kind of him. So I got some horse manure together and some hay and layered it up, and then left it for after it was buried for 18 months. When I went back and dug it up, it was more like dolphin soup rather than a nice clean skeleton. And it was incredibly smelly. So I decided to leave it for a few more months with some fresh manure, and that did the trick and enlivened the composting process. So when I came back, it was actually really well composted and really clean, for want of a better word, and not smelly at all. So that was a good sign. So I took it back to the museum and I washed it. And when I looked through the foramen magnum at the base of the skull, I noticed that there was some really interesting kind of ossification in the cranial cavity, which, you know, and I was thinking, well, the brain's supposed to be there, so what are these bony struts doing through it? So we don't have anything like an X-ray machine or anything like that, but I wanted to ask who did, and somebody suggested that the hospital would. So I called the hospital, and they very kindly let me scan the skull in the hospital, and there you can see at the bottom of the slide, you can see the bony strut kind of going right through the cranial cavity. And I was like, oh my gosh, this is, I'd never heard of anything like that before. It was really interesting. So when I contacted Rob Deville at the UK Strandings programme at the Zoological Society in London, he said that this was quite normal for mature animals of that species, and it probably died from a Brucella bacterial infection, which is quite common. Unfortunately, we weren't able to access the skull at the time that we were doing the autopsy, because we didn't quite have the right kit. But apparently, yeah, that's quite a common way that those dolphins die. And then sort of afterwards, for the interpretation, which you can see on that the blue poster, so we talked to Manx Whale and Dolphin Watch, and they are a really great organisation that do a lot of the dolphin cetacean spotting and recording of dolphin sightings around the coast, of which the Isle of Man's really great for. So they were great in helping with the interpretation, and in future that hopefully they'll help with education and outreach. And we even had to get the local language council to help us invent a new Manx name for the species, because it had never been spotted on the Isle of Man before. The Isle of Man has its own language, it's Manx Gaelic, and so they invented the name Lemedaya Muatronach. And so, so many members of the island all came together, and it was really exciting. But I'm really looking forward to the next talk, because they've got to the stage where they've mounted the skeleton together, and that's my next step, because I haven't quite got that far yet. But I just thought that this was a really great example of interagency cooperation, and it's been really great to work with so many different departments and so many people with so many different skills. So, so thank you very much for listening to my talk, and I'll look forward to the next one.
All right. Thank you very much, Laura. Excellent.